Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, so like I said, part of my job is a burn boss, and this is a state ecologist. I did not know that until about the third time he was out on one of my burns. In my presentation, I'm going to go over not just prescribed fire, but the Maryland Forest Service is kind of a small agency or unit within DNR, which is our parent agency, and we do a lot of different things. And mine is just fire focused, so that'll be the majority of this presentation. But I'll cover some other stuff too that we do. Okay, next slide. So the Maryland Forest Service, we've been around since 1906. We're one of the oldest forest management units in the country. I started back with Fred Beasley, was the father of the Maryland Forest Service. And if you guys have any questions, just write them down, or I guess there's a chat. And if I can't answer them tonight, I will get back to you. And this is our mission statement: is to protect forests, manage it, and get people out and enjoying it, and make sure it's healthy for the citizens of Maryland and all the visitors that come from around the world and the country. So part of our job, let me go back to one. So as far as the Maryland Forest Service, we have private lands, which is like our state forests, like Pocomoke State Forest, Green Ridge, Cedarville, all these different forests. That's the public lands part. They manage that. Then there's the private sector where we have our county foresters and county rangers. They help people with replanting, reforestation. They consult with them when they harvest timber. They do all that kind of stuff. Then they also do fire if there's needed. We have a state nursery, which is in Denton, that provides us with trees, and they also sell trees to whoever wants to buy them. They don't have to be from Maryland; they can be from anywhere. And we do fire. So if there's a natural cover fire larger than an acre anywhere in the state of Maryland, it becomes our responsibility. We don't always go to them because we don't always get called, but that's our operating order. It's sometimes we go when it's less, and sometimes we go when it's more, or wait till when it's more. So we assist local and county and federal partners with fire response. U.S. Park Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, we help them. We help Fish and Wildlife a lot, not just with fire suppression on Blackwater, which is down in Dorchester County, just west of Cambridge, but with prescribed fire, and they help us as well. Annually, we respond to about 123 fires. It goes up and down. It's been down in the last 10 years. The last 2 years, it's increased. Last year, it increased a lot. We help fire departments because we have specialized equipment and training. And we go for fire prevention and stuff like that, fire education like I'm doing now. And then we also do out-of-state fire, both regionally and nationally. So wildfires in Maryland, that's one of our specialized trucks. That's called a Type 6 engine, or a heavy Type 6. That thing's been all over the country. We have a few of them. So wildfires in Maryland, 4% are caused by lightning, and that's the only natural phenomenon in Maryland that is. There's no volcanoes, there's no spontaneous combustion, there's none of that stuff. And 96% are caused by humans, 35 by improper debris, and then 30 by arson. That arson number and that improper debris might be swapped. Last year was a really bad year for arson. Up in the Baltimore County and Harford County area, we've had a few arsonists that have been really active. Other causes are like tractors, combines, fire from campfires, kids playing with smoke. Kids playing with fire, railroad power lines breaking. Fires happen in Maryland any time of the year. Surprisingly, a lot of people don't realize it, but they occur mostly in spring, early spring, and then in fall, like November, and that's when we do our burning as well. The reason being is that there's lower RH, the relative humidity is down. So the finer fuels don't have as much moisture in them, so they burn better. And also during spring and fall, there's a lot more winds, which drive our fuels. I mean, our fires. We have topography in some parts of the state, especially in Western Maryland. So some of our fires are driven by slope, but most of the fires in Maryland are wind driven. And then on a micro level, they happen usually in the early to late afternoon. That's when we call it the witching hour. It's 2 o'clock because that's when the atmosphere starts to, the sun has warmed everything up and the atmosphere starts to become a little bit more unstable in the later afternoons because of radiant heat. And that's when our fire behavior starts to pick up. They happen all over the state, mostly in eastern region and western region. And the fires obviously there's different things when we deal with them. Like in Western Maryland, we have to deal with mountains and the hills. In the eastern part of the state, we have to deal with swamp and the marsh and stuff like that. But because of the way people are living and moving in Maryland, people are starting to move more into the country. So it's starting to get our wildland urban interface, or WUI, is starting to grow. And that's presents its own set of problems, not just for us, but like structural firefighters as well. The urban sprawl is a problem, not just because it's gobbling up ground. It's a problem for EMS and because it stretches our resources out. So in case you don't know, the wildland interface is where homes are built in near forests. It's a greater challenge because not only the fuels from the fire, then you have fuels from homes and the things that are around homes, like gas tanks and septic tanks and all that kind of stuff. So if you're in there with a bulldozer trying to put in a control line around a fire, you don't want to run through somebody's septic tank and fall in and all those just different kinds of stuff. Maryland, about wildfires in Maryland Forest Service, county rangers and regional staff. The rangers, all of them have Type 6 engines that take home. We have regional heavy Type 6. We have Type 4s, which are big in fire engines, which you would consider, but they're green. All of our trucks, we're going from green to white. I don't know if you guys know anything about the Forest Service, but we used to have green trucks. But when Ford and Chevy and Dodge with different companies got different contracts, then we would end up getting different shades of green. So we only have one shade of white. So it makes our fleet look more uniformed. County rangers, so we have an on-call schedule. They're requested through EMS. And we have our own radio, so we'll listen. And if the fire sounds like it's getting bad, then we'll just respond. Especially if it's far, like because my area of responsibility for suppression is Worcester, Wycomico, and Somerset. And if I'm in Snow Hill and I have to go all the way to Mardella, it could take me a good while to get there. And if they need a bulldozer or something bigger than just my brush truck, then that's even adding more time. So when we're on call, we're pretty astute about listening to what's going on. So this is a Type 6 engine. There's 4 of them in the state, and it goes out of state. We make a good bit of money. The Maryland Forest Service is one of those agencies that we don't cover our whole operating costs, and it doesn't cover all of the money that's spent to buy the property. But between out-of-state fire and hunt leases and timber sales, we do pretty good as far as making money for the state. I think last year we billed for $1.6 million for out-of-state fire, which is a pretty good number. This is one of our Type 4 engines. It's a bigger truck, like which you would think, like Cal Fire has these same kind of trucks. We have specialized equipment. So this is a Marshmaster. It's amphibious. It's in Dorchester County. We use it to go out in the marsh to set fires when we're doing prescribed fire, or to do fire suppression. If there's like hunting lodges or something that's out there that need to be protected, we'll use this to get out to them. We also use UTVs and drones. This is NRP. I don't know if you guys, NRP is a natural resource police. That's the other. So we're like the fire department for the natural resources, and they're like the police department. They just got a new helicopter. This is NRP-1. It's brand new. So they've got a Bambi bucket. They go up and they'll do recon on a fire for us, or if they can't, the Maryland State Police will. And they also have a Bambi bucket, so they can actually do fire suppression. A Bambi bucket is an orange bucket. It's usually 600 gallons that will hang underneath the helicopter, and they can do water drops on the fire in areas where it can't get to, or if we need to have the fire slowed down so we can get in front of it, they can come out and put water on it for us. Out-of-state fire. This is a picture of Texas. That's a Bambi bucket doing a drop there. So yeah, we do, like I said, we support our partners in the Mid-Atlantic, Ohio to New Jersey. And so we'll, if they need help, it's usually Pennsylvania is the one that we've gone to the most, in West Virginia. Then we'll go and spend a week or two there helping them with wildfires, or if it's just when it's really, really dry and they need coverage, extra hands just in case there is a fire, we'll go and help them there as well. As far as the VFWs, which I mean is a volunteer fire department, we go out and we get federal excess equipment. This was a little buggy that we got that's going to go to a fire department. We get all kinds of things, monitors, just any kind of clothing, fireproof clothing, any kind of stuff from the military or FEMA that they're no longer needing. We get, and we can pass that along to other state and local and county agencies. So this is Firewise. Firewise is the fire prevention part of my job that was mentioned earlier. The goal is basically just to reduce wildfire threat in Maryland, especially in the wildland urban interface. We do a lot of chipper days. That's a picture of one of the communities, I think, down in St. Mary's, where they're a Firewise community. So they have chipper days where they pile stuff up that's in their yard, and everybody comes out and helps out their neighbor, and we chip it all up and take it away. So we actually have one on Saturday in Washington County if it doesn't rain. And this is just a group of them. There's the chipper in the background with our dump truck. That dump truck is actually one we got from the federal access. So Firewise Living, this is our top 10 list for Maryland's Firewise. Make sure you have your address. Actually, I think it's better next here. Yeah, make sure your address is clearly, you can see it. That way when EMS or the fire department, this just isn't even for wildfires. This can be for any kind, police, any of them are responding to your driveway. They can see where they're going. 99% of them have GPS, but GPS doesn't always work like it should. So yard maintenance, cleaning up your yard, making sure that there's stuff that's not flammable up next to your house and that kind of stuff. You want, if it's something that stays green year round, then it's probably something that you shouldn't have next to your house, because that green is usually means that plant is usually pretty flammable if it's staying green year round. Maintenance, keeping your roof and gutters and yard free of debris. And whether you feel about Donald Trump, but when he said rake underneath your porch and all that stuff, he was actually right. Surprisingly, but he was right on that. But clear the vegetation from your driveway. So when you make sure your driveway is easy to get into and out of, so that, if you have fire trucks coming in or ambulances or anything like that, and not just then, like if you're having something delivered, making sure your driveway is opened up and clean, and you have space on each side, because that way we can get in and get out. So landscaping, use plants and mulch in your landscape to avoid using evergreens or ornamental grasses. Keep stuff away, like head trees that are, if it's going to stay green, keep it 30 feet away from your house. If you have an evergreen tree, keep it 30 feet away from your house. That way it gives you a lot of space. We call it defensible space. The foundation, make sure that's clear. Outbuildings, make sure they're clear, and keep the windows and things, doors and things closed on them. Like if it's a red flag day, make sure your stuff's kind of closed up, because if a fire does happen, things can blow into buildings and openings and stuff like that, and that's when your house and stuff will catch on fire. So the meat to the prevention program for Maryland for the Firewise program is a community wildfire protection plan. We do these for fire departments mostly. We don't ask them if they want them. We just do them and give them to them. If you're in a community and you guys want a wildfire protection plan done by us, let me know. we have people all over the state that can come out and help you do that, and you can become a Firewise community. And then if you guys want to do chipper days, or there's any kind of other events where you're doing fuel reduction projects, that's stuff that can come along with it. On the East Coast, CWPPs are not that big of a deal because fire is prevalent here, and it's not a catastrophe. We don't have it on the scale they do there. I would say that the fires that you see in California or Idaho, whatever, they are catastrophes. But if you have a fire, your neighbor puts his or their coals from their wood stove out, and the fire burns your house or your garage down and your other neighbor's garage down, then it's not a catastrophe on the same scale, but it's a catastrophe for you, for that neighbor that had their property burned up. Yeah, so it's a collaborative effort driven on a local level, and it identifies hazardous fuel reduction treatments and recommends types of methods treatment will protect one or more at-risk communities. The other part of the job, the fire prevention, is outreach, education, preparation, and then actions. Education is kind of like I'm doing now. I go, or people that work for me go to fire departments, open houses. We'll go to schools. We're the custodian of Smokey Bear. So if somebody wanted Smokey Bear to come to an event, like if you guys were having some kind of outreach event and you wanted Smokey Bear to come there, he could. We'd have to incorporate some kind of fire prevention message into the event, but the event itself doesn't have to be a fire prevention event. So here's the educational part: community events, HOAs, volunteer fire department support, such as open houses, recruitment drives, DNR units. We do help the Park Service all the time. Any kind of event that's, if it's, even on our tables we'll have other programs. I'll have fire prevention, but then we'll have like the CRP or Tree Farm USA, just any kind of stuff where we're sharing information. The more we share, the better it is. And then of course Smokey Bear. So the preparation part of it is the CWPP training, the VFD support. So we do that with like fire, dry hydrants and stuff like that. Preparation, DNR units, getting with like NRP, and so that they know I'm a law enforcement officer. I don't carry a gun. I don't arrest people, but I still have a law enforcement commission. So if I'm at a place and I'm having issues with someone that's burning, I'm trying to cite them. And if they are giving me a hard time, then I'll call for support from an armed officer and they'll come out and help me. So having them prepared to know how to do that kind of stuff, and educating them is also a good way, because they deal with people not just for fire, but I mean, they deal with them on all different kinds of subjects. And then action at home, back to the Firewise landscape, the top 10, making your roof hardened, fuel reduction, and then your 911 address. 911 address is a big one. The action for community, back to the fire departments. We'll have fuel reduction projects for communities that are in the Firewise Maryland program, identifying road that need to have maintenance, because if it's a road that's really bad and it's the only road in, the only road out, and it's in really bad shape, and it's hard for the fire department to respond, and it's hard for us to respond. And then construction maintenance of fire breaks. We just did a big project with the Lock Raven reservoir for Baltimore City, putting in fire breaks and removing fuels and some invasive species through this program. And then installing dry hydrants. They really help the rural fire departments when there's no pressurized hydrant system there. And then on state lands, we do. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Kelly just asked about dry hydrants. If you could just explain that just a little bit more.
So dry hydrant is a pipe system that we put in near like a pond, or we can put them on the side of a bridge. You've seen them, you just didn't realize it. And it doesn't require to have pressurized system. Like in town, you see fire hydrants. Well, these are usually white, and it's just a pipe sitting on the side of a bridge or near a pond. And we'll dig down if it's on a pond, we'll dig down so it's protected, and they'll have a pipe system that's got a filter on one end and then a filter on the other. So when a fire truck pulls up, hooks up to this dry hydrant, it can draft the water pretty easily and not have to worry about getting a pump out. It doesn't have to worry about laying a hose as much. It just makes it a lot more expedient to get water into the water tenders and engines, whereas when they don't have a fire hydrant that's available. This is something we used to do a lot. We got away from it, and it's a big push. We've had a lot of fire departments, especially in the central region and over here on the shore, requesting this. And I actually just wrote a grant. We got number 4 out of 13. We just got funded for some money to buy parts of these dry hydrants for the fire departments to put in. We used to actually put them in, but our staff, we have so little people and so many pokers in the fire that we don't have the staff to actually put them in. So we'll give them money, and they can hire a contractor to do it, or if one of the good old boys at the fire department has an excavator or whatever, as it is some places, we can get money and get some of the parts and give it to them, and they can put them in themselves. A little fire history. Fire, obviously, you guys know, is a natural occurring process. Here in the state of Maryland, I have a map coming up. Most of the state of Maryland, the forest before we came along, burnt between 6 and 12 years. The shore burnt a few places on the shore, probably like down in Virginia, the eastern shore of Virginia burnt more often. And fire creates healthy forests. It's something the forests like. It gets rid of diseased trees, it'll bring them down quicker. And the Native Americans always like this picture. I'm just the Plains Indians, but they used it as a tool for all kinds of stuff. They used it when they cleared land. They used it to in the east when they cleared land to clear it so they could use it to live. The same in the western United States, and I even think they used fire as a weapon out there. So they knew the power of fire, and they knew how to use it. Here, they used to burn the marsh. It's a good way to get to it. It's healthy for the marsh. They knew it back then, and we're just coming around figuring it out now. So this is a map. This is a fire regime. The guy that made this is a PhD from, I want to say, the University of Missouri. If you want to know, I can get you the information on it. But if you look at Maryland, you can see it's orange. So it burnt. We burnt a lot, and if it's hard to see, but Dorchester County is a little bit darker orange, and then down on the eastern shore of Virginia is a little bit darker orange. So those areas actually burnt more often than other parts of the state. So it's no surprising that when we've done prescribed fire, that fire dependent plants, or when there's been a wildfire, no fire's been in an area, that plants show up that we didn't know were there and hadn't seen in a while. Because, like I said, fire is a part of nature, and some plants, as most of you already know, some plants need fire to begin the process to grow. So, prescribed fire in Maryland Forest Service, we conduct RX burns on state property and private property, and we assist our state partners. Others, like I'm getting ready to burn an old country club down in Snow Hill for the Park Service. We help the TNC or the Nature Conservancy all the time. And then there's private contractors that actually go out and burn as well. And we provide training. If you're going to burn more than an acre in the state of Maryland, you have to provide a burn plan to us, and it has to be reviewed to one of the regional fire managers. And you also have to get a burn permit. We promote it. We encourage it. We're getting ready to have a prescribed fire council in the state of Maryland. Me and one of the guys from TNC are working on standing that up now. The problem we have is a lot of times is the county air quality people, and they kind of a lot of people get a lot of pushback from them because people don't understand. They don't understand fire because it is destructive by nature. It's understandably that people are scared of it because it's how it's been portrayed. And even when you're a professional, my first burn as a burn boss, I lost the fire I had actually got out of control. It didn't get off state property, but I went from burn boss to dozer operator in a matter of 10 minutes. But so it happens, and I'm glad it happened on my first fire, because now I don't have to worry about it anymore. I don't have to worry about losing my fire, because I already did. And we provide training and assistance with the RX Burn Council. I think eventually it's going to be that we have equipment, like resources and stuff that private individuals need to conduct burns on their property. And we're working on we have a set of requirements for people to become burn bosses, so they can burn their own property and stuff like that. This is something that me and a buddy of mine that worked for the Forest Service had been pushing for a long time, because we didn't really do a lot of burning on private property. But our regional forester here in the eastern part of Maryland actually went out and got federal money. So now it's a deliverable. So now we have to burn on private property as a deliverable, because we took the money. So he knows how to do things. He's one of those guys that just sees ways around red tape. So we're really lucky to have him. Where do we do prescribed fire? Everywhere, all regions. The western part of the state and the eastern part of the state, just like with wildfire, is more prevalent, but for different reasons. All of our fires are for fuel reduction, especially when they're the first time they've been burnt. But then after that, the fuel reduction becomes less of an issue. So we burn on federal lands. We help Blackwater all the time. Well, they do the burning, but we do the assisting. TNC, like I couldn't get my burns done, and they couldn't get their burns done without. And same with Blackwater, with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. All three of us, if we didn't have a very good working relationship, it wouldn't work out. And it's all about just being friendly and having a passion about something. I've been on engines out in the western part of the United States in Georgia, where we show up and we actually go out of state on wildfires with people from Blackwater. So it'll be 2 or 1 federal firefighter and 2 or 3 state firefighters on a state truck. And we'll show up and people will be amazed that we have that working relationship, because a lot of places, the federal government and the state government are competing, and they don't like each other, and they don't respond well to each other. And that's kind of sad, because it doesn't really help the taxpayer or the community that they're there to serve at all. When do we burn? We burn in spring and fall. Most of it's done in spring, starting at the end of February, March, April, into May. I've burnt into June. There's certain times we have to cut off like grass burns by the 15th of April because of nesting, like turkeys start to nest and stuff like that. So we don't want to burn their nests up. In fall, we do a little bit, but we just don't have the daylight, and we don't get the radiant sun. So we don't get as much, like understory burns. We can't do them in the fall. Grass burns and open areas, we can do that if they're smaller units. We're going to start trying to burn almost every month out of the year, just to see, because there's new data out that says trying to get tree mortality, if that's something you want, it's better to burn in late summer or even late spring. We haven't started that yet, but we will this coming summer. We're going to try. The only problem with that is a lot of times when we're out of state on fires in California or Texas or wherever, that's in August or September into October. So why do we burn? Like I said, fuel reduction, eradication of invasive species, and then habitat restoration. That picture is a frosted elfin. That's one of the butterflies down here on the eastern shore that we burn for in the Furnace Town area. It's globally threatened. How do we burn? So you have to do site prep. You have to have a burn plan. I have to get spot weather, ignitions, and then we repeat it every 2 to 5 years. If it's a site that's like an ESA, that's it's a sensitive area that we've identified that needs fire. So site preparations of control lines, we come in with this skid steer or a bulldozer, or we'll use roads or a creek bed or anything like that. and then put in lines. And that's the way we control the fire, because a natural wildfire or a natural cover fire, you can't really put them out with water, and you can put out some of it with water, but some of them are so big, you just have to burn them in. You have to rob it of its resources. So we put a line in the sand where around down the mineral soil. And once the fire gets to the edge of that line, it'll go out because it doesn't have anything else to burn, because it needs fuel, oxygen, and heat. And once you take its fuel away, it can't do it. So yeah, so for site preparation, we identify staging areas. That's where we meet up and do our briefings, talk about our comms, what communication channel we're on, medical plan. If we have an outside agency like the Sheriff's Department or NRP that has to do traffic control, they're there. So it's just an area where we tell everybody what's going on, who's doing what, who's my ignitions boss, who's my holding boss. Ignitions are, our boss would be the person that has 2 or 3 people who are tearing drip torches or whatever ignition device through the woods to actually start the fire, using different burning patterns. And then my holding boss is somebody that's on the engine or UTV, and he has more people working, or they have more people working for them than the ignitions, because the holding boss is actually the most important person on a controlled burn, because they set the tempo of how fast we're going to go. Because if the fire's burning and it's hitting the line real hard and they can't control it, then they have to slow it down. So you have to have the most competent people in that position. So the little video is a drone. It's an English drone. That's TNC's. That's down on Furnace Town a few weeks ago. That thing can burn about 100 acres in an hour. So it was a 100-acre burn that I did, and Chase, the pilot, it was about an hour and a half. It took us to burn this, and it burnt really, really well. There's a bunch of different species that are in there that in the Furnace Town area that are fire dependent. We also use a drip torch, and I think I have a picture of that later on. Drones and flare guns. Yes, ma'am.
You're saying that the drone is catching things on fire? How does that work?
So they're called Dragon Balls. They look like ping pong balls, or as the kids call them now, beer pong balls. So it's got magnesium something inside it, and then it's got a tube of antifreeze. So the antifreeze is injected into the ball. The ball is dropped, and he can set the pattern. If you want him dropped every 50 by 50 or 75 by 75, if you want more fire. If the more fire you want, you space them out further apart. The less intense fire, you bring them in 10 by 10 or 5 by 5 or whatever. You put more fire on the ground so your fire can't get as much speed. But that's how it is. It's magnesium. I can't remember. It's right on the top of my tongue. I just can't remember. It's magnesium and something, and then radiator fluid, antifreeze. Pretty cool. And that thing holds about 400 little balls. So I guess they're a little bit smaller than a beer pong or a ping pong ball. But I think the battery's got 30 minutes of life, and he can do almost up to half a mile. He's got that much range, but it really, really, really cuts down on. It's my favorite thing in the world. As a burn boss, it was a little weird the first couple of times I had it on doing ignitions, because as a burn boss, you ask the guys that are dragging torches or girls, whoever, what's the fire doing? Is it burning hot enough? Is it burning too hot? Is it meeting my objective? Am I cooking trees too much? So you lose those eyes on the ground. But it's a trade-off, because you don't have people that are internal in there close to the fire. So basically what we do is, when we're using the drone, we'll start at a point, we'll anchor in somewhere, and then we'll take fire down one line, a group down one line, and then a group down another line, and we'll actually just ring the burn unit out, and then Chase or whoever the pilot is will come in and do their patterns. So it starts a little head fire. A head fire is one that's going, the wind is pushing. A backing fire is a fire that's going into the wind. And then you have lateral fires, which are going to the right or the left of the wind. So you have hundreds of them or thousands of them, depending on how big your fire is, all over your burn unit. And it actually makes for a cleaner burn. It gets more heat in there, even if it's at lower intensity, and that gets your smoke rising up. So the more heat that you're putting up at one time, the better your smoke lift is going to be. So you have less of a likelihood of smoking out houses, or your column dropping in someone's city. It just helps with smoke management. It helps with the wear and tear on your people, and it's a safety issue. And I've learned over the last year that when I'll just go in internally and look, and Chase has FLIR, which is infrared cameras on that thing, and a really good video camera. So he'll text me as he's burning or as he's doing his job. He'll text me video or still pictures of what the fire's doing on my phone just from his iPad right there, so I can see it. But I'll go into the fire and go internal, and as long as I can hear the drone above me, the fire is usually not so intense that I'm in any kind of danger. And as long as I have a really good weather report where there's not going to be any kind of wind shift or anything like that, then it's relatively safe. I know that kind of doesn't sound like what wouldn't be the norm, but fire isn't going to go any. Fire is very predictable unless there's a factor in it that becomes unpredictable. And the only factor here on the shore that's going to be unpredictable would be the wind. So I know where fire is going to go as long as the wind is what it's supposed to be. I hope I answered the question. So the plants we have, that's a lupin, sundial lupin, beautiful. That's down in Furnace Town, and the frosted elephant actually loves this plant. So do deer. It's statewide threatened, I think, and it's pretty. It's growing down there abundant. They actually go in and put electric fences around areas where there's a lot of it to keep the deer out. This one's down in Furnace Town. Crested Yellowed Orchard is out in Western Maryland. I think that's on Naswanga Hills. That's eastern. The White Fringed Orchard is eastern, and then Mountain Pitch Pine is out in Western Maryland, and Shortleaf Pine is on the eastern shore. The two orchards are threatened. The shortleaf isn't threatened, but it's not as predominant as it used to be. And then the pitch pine, I don't really know. I have to look that one up. I don't remember. So that's a bobwhite quail. The picture about, and so the frosted elephant was earlier. That's globally at risk. Northern bobwhite is on decline nationally. Red pheasant, the redneck pheasant, is on decline nationally. Eastern wild turkey is on decline, and that's in the state, and they're not real sure about that. So the bobwhite quail, a lot of these ESAs we have are good for the bobwhite quail because they like a basal area where there's hardly any trees, a lot of scrub brush. And I'm gonna go on a little tangent. I love quail. As a child, I grew up with my grandfather hunting quail and flounder fishing on the Eastern Shore. So being able to help bring them back gives me great joy and a lot of pride in my work. It's weird. I'm the fire prevention person, but using fire is what I do enjoy the most. I don't really actually like fire. I just like the process of what it can do. I guess that makes sense. And they don't know why the turkey's on decline. For years, you saw lots and lots and lots of turkeys, and you still do in some places, but the wildlife and heritage guys they can't figure out what it is, what's happening to them. There's a whole litany of other, there's so many other, especially plants that we burn for, that I can't list them all. If you guys want a list of them, I can provide them for you. I don't know if I should share. So apparently, I don't know if you guys know this, but the longleaf pine, they're getting ready there's some people that are getting ready to try to make it change, saying that it actually was native to the Eastern Shore of Maryland. There's a paper that's getting ready to come out this year. I'm not exactly sure when. So that's another pine. I was in the military. I was down in the station in Georgia, and I loved seeing longleaf pine. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. There's a stand. We have a stand in Sharptown that's on TNC property that we manage with fire. And then there's a small stand of sterile ones that's on state property in Snow Hill, which is a really cool spot that we've been managing with fire as well. So this is the Delmarva Bay that's on the eastern shore. Fire helps get rid of the gums. Nothing grows there that's like woody plants very much except gum. But these places are loaded with rare and endangered species. They're called Carolina Bays down in Carolina. There's another name for them in Georgia. I can't remember. But these are some of the ecosystems that we burn for, like shortleaf pine stands. We want to get them. There's lower Shoer sand dunes, which are like in Worcester County. They're going along near Furnace Town. It's another one of the places. All these sand dunes, the Delmarva Bays, they're all kind of interconnected. Well, not so much the sand dune, I mean Delmarva Bays, but like shortleaf pines, the sand dunes, and like lupin and quail and all those things we burn in these areas, and we're getting multiple pluses or multiple checks for different kinds of things that like the fire. And so, because like quail likes that early successional, so the easy way to keep things from no big trees is we just burn it. It doesn't hurt the property. It doesn't hurt the ground. There's no chemicals going into it. It's not, it's not hurting the bay. It's none of that stuff. It's not killing plants that you don't want to kill, because we want fire dependent plants in there. So fireworks, in Western Maryland's oak and hickory forests and savannas, and then serpentine barrens in Western Maryland, the rock crop openings. So that's all I have. Let me escape from this. I hope you guys have questions, because that's actually my favorite part. Like, especially when I go to school. There's a school I go to on Kent Island, and it's usually fourth graders, and they have a teacher there that's all about natural resources, and they have the best questions. So hopefully you guys have some questions for me. I know I'm almost at 8 o'clock, but I do like questions. And if you don't have them now, you can send them to me. I can get them to you one way or another.
Hey, Lance, can you hit stop share at the top right there?
Yep. Stop share.
Okay. No, great. Thank you so much. Let me put a spotlight on you so people can see you. And then we'll open it up for questions. There's one in the chat box from Kelly. How do you let the public know that you will be burning in their area?
So we have signs that we put out that stay there, that say this area is, will be burnt different times of the year. So, expect to see fire equipment, or don't be surprised. I can't remember the verbiage exactly. But I can't. We put stuff out on Facebook or Twitter sometimes. A lot of the local people know, because a lot of these places we burn, we've burnt a lot. So there's the people that utilize it, like horse equestrian clubs and stuff like that. They know it. So, and one of the rangers that works with us, she's into the equestrians a lot, so she passes that along. But there isn't a way for me to let the general public outside of social media know. I've had some turkey hunters get really, really mad at me for burning, but they don't realize that once the fire comes through the next day, there's so many turkeys in there, because they love them barbecue bugs and crispy things and stuff like that. So we actually had one guy because he was really mad at me. He wasn't even hunting the unit. He was hunting on private property that was adjacent. I'm like, well, what are you mad at me for? Because we're going to drive the turkeys to you. And he was yelling, so I had to walk away. I let somebody else talk to him, and he actually called and apologized. Not to me, but to somebody else, about the way he talked. And because we were like, come back tomorrow or the next day and see what you see, and you'll get a turkey. He was like, yeah, you guys are right. And people complain about, or are worried about wildlife getting burned up, and they do. It happens. But the benefits far outweigh the risk. And a lot of the animals and stuff, they have way better instincts. They're out of there before you even get close to them. The hardest thing is if it's nesting turkeys, it burns those eggs and stuff up. So
Kelly, is there a website or in the Facebook and Twitter account?
The DNR has one. We used to have one, And then under the last administration, they took all of the local parks and stuff away. It took all of our social media accounts and just had a DNR one that's, they have one for NRP. I think they have one for the Park Service. I don't know if they have one for the Park Service. I think it might just be not the DNR parent agency. So look on there, and then there's different, like the equestrian groups and stuff like that. But it's probably, we only burn in certain areas unless it's on private property. So we repeatedly burn those areas because they've been identified by our ecologist, or I've seen something in there, or the forest manager's seen something in there. Then we know that, hey, this is some place that we want to burn, and it becomes on our list. And then we stop harvesting timber there. It becomes kind of an untouchable place. So, but yeah, I'm sorry I don't have a better answer for you about how to get the info. That's something maybe I should bring up at our staff meeting.
I have a question, Lance.
Yes, ma'am.
I was first of all, thank you, and thank you for all that y'all do. I mean, it looks like it's such a well coordinated effort, and very safety first, and using the technology. I was interested to learn that you're trying to get more private people to do burns. Or is there a push for that on private property? And will they be managing for specific species? Like, will they be managing for ground nesting birds, or?
Yes. So the Delmarva stewardship is for quail mostly, and there's a huge push for it. Like my grandfather, I told you that story. My grandfather, I ended up working. I graduated with the guy's son. Rob used to be the Worcester County forester, and my grandfather he was one of those guys. It's his property. He's going to do whatever he wants on his property, and he would just go start fire and burn his property. He was managing for quail. This is in the 80s, and he wouldn't get a burn permit. He wouldn't get a burn plan. None of that stuff mattered to him. And but so that's why I literally liked quail. And Matt, our regional forester, went out and got this federal money. So yes, we're Bob Long is the guy from Wildlife and Heritage. He's our bird guy, and at least in the eastern region. So yeah, we're doing all the private property burns I do are for quail management. Some of the couple of the rangers do management for deer. We don't need to manage for deer, I don't think. There's enough deer out there, but I mean, it still helps. And it used to be that under our old state fire supervisor, he was an awesome guy, but we have a limited staff, and he put a tier that we only did prescribed fire on state property until we got everything burnt. And it's never ever going to happen. There's too many high profile areas. So then the public got pushed to the ground. And I always felt, I mean, it's the Forest Service. We're a tax funded unit. We should provide a service for private property. Oh, and by the way, when they want to burn their own property, we were made it so stringent that they couldn't do it themselves. So it was like, we're one of those bureaucracies that, we're the government that everybody complains about. So we got a new fire state supervisor he's awesome. He's a really good friend of mine. And we've kind of changed that between him and Matt and some of the other people that I work with. We've changed it. So in the down in Worcester County, there's probably 7 or 8 decent sized farms, and there's 3 or 4 I know in Wicomico County, I think, that are being managed for quail. And some of it's on wildlife, some of it's on state property in Wicomico County, but a lot of them are on private property in Worcester County. We have a big area in Federalsburg that's on state property that's quail. And then the Park Service just got a Old Nassawango Country Club, and I'm pushing for them to kind of do quail there, but they're not going to put campgrounds or anything like that. They're going to manage it as a wildlife management area, and it's already kind of set up for quail, so it would be pretty cool to do. And that place won't be hunted, so the birds, if they do get in there, they can fly to these other within 6 miles of there. There's countless people that have farms that they're managing for quail. So That's I'm excited about that.
Very cool. I just want to let people know if you want to ask a question, you can put it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand, and I can call on you. One question I have also on the Eastern Shore and everywhere over here in Maryland, well, the land with climate change and the sea level rise and the land kind of sinking and all of that, is that impacting the fire work that you're doing, or not?
Our fires are more controlled by weather. The places that have been fire prone have always been fire prone. California has been fire prone. They're having less fires as we're going forward, but we're having bigger fires, and that's kind of a miss. Like when you hear that, it's like, well, that we're having big, worse fires, but it's it's called the big box. I was telling you earlier. If it's in an area that's fire is beneficial to it, then we'll pull back and let it burn. It used to be like that they had to be out by 9 o'clock was the running rule for land management agencies in the United States, and that's been kind of detrimental to the forests. So that's why some of the fires are bigger, because they're not putting them out on purpose. They're letting them put themselves out. They're going to like a road network. If it's threatening a line of communication or something like that, power lines or oil pipeline or a building or whatever, then they'll deal with it. But trying to deal with it and it costs less money to do it that way. So we're not spending all the money on, but sometimes you just have to. In California, you can't do it that way in California, most of it, because there's always something. There's always somebody's house. There's always a community. There's always something that seems that's threatened. So air quality plan. It's minuscule. What prescribed fire puts up in the atmosphere is minuscule compared to everything else, and any of the negative aspects of prescribed fire are outweighed by the positive stuff that it puts. Because if it's something that happens naturally and plants need it naturally, then it's something that we should figure out how to do. But we don't do a air quality report. We do smoke management plans. So like if there's chicken houses or if there's a major highway or something like that, then I will or I won't burn on days when the wind is coming from one direction or the other. So that's, I don't, it's not that I don't care about air quality, but it's not something that I take into consideration when I'm doing a burn. Smoke management, because I don't want to cause an accident or I don't want to kill a flock of chickens, is what I focus on. So it's kind of similar, but not the same. Our families, camps, etc., also scouts. So do you mean that question is that do we do stuff for Boy Scouts or
like no? I think it was about. I would just think it was about the air quality with the burning and things like that they were talking about.
But we do support the scouts. There's someone we can write.
Fighting fires easier than in the past.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. They're in the process of, like, especially out west, putting up a local area network using drones and towers and stuff, so that we can. We used to have to hand write stuff, messages if we needed hose, we needed water. When you put in a fire line, how much fire line, you'd have to go in and report it. Now we were using Art Collector or 123 Survey, and we're collecting that stuff real time. We're sending in messages real time. We're communicating in real time. So the maps that were the back in the talk or headquarters, it's just the ICP are real time. So it's even easier for the map makers. So it's more expedient. Drones are helping a lot. They're also hindering a lot when it's a private drone that gets up on the fire. Then they have to shut down air. If have to shut down the big planes and the helicopters. But as far as using them because we can use the drone to burn out. If we have a big fire and it's coming and we need to get a line that's got more depth to it, so we can, and it's in an area that we can't get to or it's hard to get to and it's dangerous to put in people because of terrain, then we'll go in with the drone and put in more fire. So when the fire comes, it's hitting black. So it's 100 feet or a mile from our fire line. so it's not escaping. So and that's going to burn anyway. It's in front of the fire, so it's not like we're creating a fire where it wouldn't have burnt anyway. So technology is huge, and it's going to be interesting 10 years to see how we fight fires. All the stuff that's going on with robots and stuff, it's going to be interesting to see.
Oh. All right. Any other questions for Lance tonight? Joe, this was right up your alley.
Planning for avoiding fire and smoke and pesticide applications for safety and health. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. If you have health issues, that's one of the things I have to worry about. Smoke issues, like that is air quality. There's a guy that lives near one of our burns who's he's got some breathing issues, so I can't burn on certain winds. So yeah, but fire is way better than pesticides and herbicides, hands down. Herbicides and pesticides are made in a factory. They create byproducts that are horrible. They create, they put crap in the bay that's horrible. They're killing off stuff that you don't want to kill, and they're not promoting anything. Well, fire, it might kill stuff, but there's all things it promotes. So I'll take fire over pesticides and herbicides any day of the week. I've enjoyed being here, guys.
Well, thank you, Lance, so much. We've learned so much from you, and again, thank you for all that you do for helping to control the fires that we don't want, and helping us to use fire in very creative ways to help our ecosystem. So thank you, and I'm going to be in touch because I want Smokey Bear coming to have a visit at the Natural History Society at our museum at one of our events. So,
and since you said Smokey Bear, I'm proud of you, because most people say Smokey the Bear. He's actually been invited to the 4th of July parade. I'm gonna tell you a funny story about Smokey Bear. I used to be Smokey Bear all the time. My cousin, she had a Girl Scout and the Boy Scout troop, and I lived in one of the state forests in Operational House. So I would go down there whenever it was near a state park, Milburn Landing. And I'd go down there, and whenever her troop was there, and there was this little kid. As soon as I saw him, he came up, he knocked on my nose and said, "Plastic, you're fake." So I was like, "Oh man, I gotta stay away from this kid." So it was a couple years I didn't see him. It was August. It was at Shad, same Boy Scout troop. And I was in the suit for like an hour and 30 minutes. You're only supposed to be in there for 15. I was sweating and dying. And it was like the end of the thing. We got on this platform, and they all stood around me, and they were taking pictures. And the kid that was knocked on my nose, he got behind me on this platform and was like, "You're a fake. You're a phony. Look at those wires in there." He's like, "How much money do you get for being in there? You're boring ass." He berated me for like 5 minutes. It was, I wanted to laugh, and I wanted to but it was, it was so funny. I was like, man, this kid's a jerk, but it was funny at the same time. So I try to avoid being in Smokey Bear as much as I can.
Well,
I will let you know. I'm going to bring up a better way for us to relate to the public when we're burning, because that is actually it's not something we've had an issue. We've had that turkey hunter, but it's not something we really had an issue with. But I mean, I bet there's plenty of people that wanted to go do something and then showed up and we were burning and they never said anything. So it's the silent people that I didn't reach. So that's a very, very good thing to bring up. And once I figure that out, I'll let you know so you can share that with the person that brought it up.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Take
All
care, right. And we'll see you later. Everybody, stay well.
Good night.
Outside. Bye.
Bye-bye.